Hello, Front Row fam, and welcome back to the Front Row Show. Thanks for being here, y'all. Thanks for being here, y'all. You guys are the real MVP. You guys are supporting me the most out of all the Slice fans, and I thank you so much. It's been a great clay court season, and I hope you've appreciated the stuff we've been able to put out on the channel, as well as the, I think, 2 Front Row shows we had during this run. It's really exciting for me. Like I said many times throughout the show, I've found a new appreciation for the clay, I think, and that's partly because Roger Federer's playing. I feel like almost in the Front Row show, I'm allowed to express my bias more freely, or I should say safely, without getting roasted by you guys as much. Maybe because you are more mature and have a better understanding of what I do. But to me, it was awesome seeing Roger Federer play on the clay again, and it showed me, just a lot more about all the clay, his game, his skills, everybody else's skills. I found a new appreciation for Rafael Nadal, all that stuff. So it was awesome. Clay swing was great. Felt long. I'm gonna after this show, I'm taking a 5-day break from anything, and then we're getting back on track for the clay or for the grass. So I'm excited because as a biased Federer fan, as I get roasted for all the time on the show, you're obviously excited for clay or for grass. Holy crap, because he's won it 8 times. That's being Wimbledon, because the grass season is basically just Wimbledon. They're trying to extend it a little bit, but make it more fair. But they haven't really done much. They got Stuttgart, then Halle, and then Federer. Sorry, did I say Federer when I meant Wimbledon? Is that the same thing? No. Then you got Wimbledon. But in this episode of the Front Row Show, we are taking a look back at the clay. I'm going to do some wrap-ups for each of some of the top players. I'm going to do a road to the title for Rafael Nadal. I listened to a very interesting interview with him after the final. He talked about his mental state coming into the clay swing as far as injuries go, and obviously his physical body, but then also his mental state coming in. And that was pretty interesting. I have some thoughts on that. I have a wrap-up for Djokovic, Thiem, Federer, Zverev, Del Potro, and Tsitsipas. And then we're also going to answer a great question from the Gold Wolf on who Federer would cheer for if, say, for instance, Nadal was playing Djokovic in the final of Wimbledon, and has the effect that would have on the GOAT standing on the Grand Slams titles or Grand Slam totals race. And then I'll do a grass season quick preview looking at the most dangerous players on grass. So thanks for tuning in from wherever you're tuning in from, whether that's in the States, Canada. Do we have anyone from Europe? No, we do have someone from Europe. I think it's Sean in London. Welcome to the show. I'm stoked you're here. I look forward to doing this show every second week with you guys. And of course, I thank you again for your support, for supporting the Slice. I know it's a legit commitment you're making, so I appreciate that. What is the biggest thing that's happened in the last month of the clay? Probably a bit more than a month. Rafael Nadal winning his 12th French Open. Big time, big deal. It's what I've I've just been getting less biased and less salty as time goes on about Nadal. I used to literally hate him so much because I was such a huge Federer fan. So you can probably relate to that. And if Federer and Nadal are playing, I'm 100% cheering for for Federer now. And so when Nadal won his 9th French Open, 11th French Open, but now his 12th French Open, the risk or the tendency is for us to just be like, oh, it's just another French Open, and it doesn't mean anything for him. But it means so much because I was talking about this with my friend the other day. It's kind of like when people talk about the weak era theory with Federer, where it's like, oh, he had these easy Grand Slams before Nadal and Djokovic came around. No Grand Slam is easy. You're always playing the best tennis players in the world and having to beat them in 7 matches to win. No Grand Slam is taken for granted. No Grand Slam is won and the player is like, oh, yeah, that was easy. Even Nadal winning his 12th French Open out of 14 attempts. It's insane what he's done. He still doesn't take it for granted. I don't believe that for a second. And he says that much. So what he said was this year is especially special for him because obviously he's older now, but he said that after the Australian Open and then having to pull out, and then he lost in Acapulco to Kyrgios and then having to pull out of Indian Wells, he said he was in a very dark kind of state mentally and because of his injuries and just because of the level. So he took a tough loss in the final of the Australian Open, losing to Djokovic. Obviously, he just got destroyed by Djokovic. So that's obviously a morale killer there. And then he lost to Kyrgios in Acapulco, and he didn't like the way that went down. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy around that match with Kyrgios doing his antics on court, underhand serving. Nadal was salty afterwards. He said he didn't show respect. And then he got injured in Indian Wells and had to pull out right before the Federer match, which I'm sure he was looking forward to. So then he had to miss Miami, and then he just basically fast-forwarded to the clay season. A lot of people kind of roasted Nadal, or they just go like, how is Nadal always injured, and then 2 weeks later he's like perfectly good to go for the clay. But this year is a bit different, he said. In the time after Indian Wells, he said that he went back home and he's just not feeling motivated. He's feeling just insecure about his tennis, and he's just like off. He said he was negative in his mind, negative, when he said he's usually been able to stay very positive and keep working through injuries. So it's interesting to hear him be vulnerable at that, which is really cool. Coming in, he said he obviously didn't play great in Monte Carlo, did not feel good. But then he said in Barcelona it started to change. He made it to the final and he lost. He made it to the semifinal and he lost to Thiem. But he said it started to feel better there. Then in Madrid, he felt better. He ran into a hot Tsitsipas who beat him there. He said he started to feel a lot better though in Madrid. And then in Rome, I would say he almost reached top level, winning the tournament, beating Djokovic in the final, and having like the perfect entry into the French Open. So during that whole swing when he wasn't winning, I was going like, if he doesn't turn this around and win the French or win Rome or win something, we are, sorry if I'm touching my nose so much, I have allergies and it's crazy. But if he doesn't turn it around, he's going to, like, his dominance on clay would probably be over. If he lost in the French Open, I would be making a video right now saying that his dominance on clay is probably done and will probably never be the same. Like, he could win the French Open next year, but I don't think he's just going to have he's not going to have the same aura of respect around him as he would, I think, if he won the French Open, which he obviously ended up doing. We saw him come back to his full form, and he seemed to almost just dismiss players like Federer with absolute ease, which is crazy, which is what he's done in the past. But he just showed again like why he's the ultimate champion on clay. He plays this game so well. I almost think he's definitely become smarter with age, but he doesn't have to be the most physical player on the court to win anymore. He used to just run people into the absolute dirt on clay. He'd be the most physical player you could play. But I'd say, wouldn't you, that Thiem is a more physical player now. He kind of grinds where he hits bigger now than Nadal does, but now smarter. He knows the game of tennis better. He's a clay genius, and he knows how to use Thiem's power against him, use the angles, come to the net so much, and volley so well. Like, that's what a lot of people have talked about with Nadal's volleying, is that it's super underrated. One of the reasons people think it is underrated is because he's really only volleying when, like, it's a really smart time to come in, like when a guy's pulled way off the court and then he's going to have to slice and then he sneaks in. It's not like Federer where he's like serving and volleying all the time. It's kind of like a different type of volleying. But Rafa showed pure clay greatness there. And it's crazy to me what he did. One of the things I noticed is that he keeps at the French, when he's playing good clay court tennis, he keeps his first serve percentage insanely high, like 80%, which is like, he's kind of rolling serves in there, but on the clay, it's hard to attack it, and he's winning like an insane amount of his first and second serve points on that. So that's part of the reason he's so dominant. Anyways, I was in awe watching him in the clay swing, kind of ramp that back up, and it's a kudos to him as a man, him as a player, for digging out of that hole mentally and physically and getting back to his top shape to win the French Open. So congrats to Rafael Nadal for winning his 12th Grand Slam and 18th major. Now, like I said in my wrap-up of the tournament, getting closer to Federer than he is to Djokovic now in the race again. So I think that puts him back in second place in the GOAT debate, technically for me now, with Roger Federer as number one. To me, in my mind, he'll always be number one, but if Nadal ends up winning more Grand Slams than him, I'll probably have to tip my hat, but I'll still think in the back of my mind that Federer's the greatest. But that's going to make some people mad. But let's do a clay court wrap up for some of these other players, because it's a big part of the season, and it's kind of a part of the season I've ignored before, but it's really cool to watch it very closely and put out a ton of content during it. So Novak Djokovic in Monte Carlo. So coming into the clay court season, Djokovic was like losing in the first few rounds in every Masters that he played. Really weird form after being dominant in the Australian Open and winning. In Monte Carlo, he had a quarterfinals loss to Medvedev, who has gone missing. We don't know where Medvedev is. There's people looking for him right now. He wasn't one of the hottest players on the ATP Tour coming into the clay season, but he's gone. We don't know where he is. In Madrid, he won the tournament, defeating Tsitsipas. So obviously he found his level then, and that's a huge win for him. He also beat Dominic Thiem in the semifinals, so that's a big deal, obviously, because we know we're like the Slice has been not shy with tooting Thiem's horn as far as how good he is on clay and how good he's going to be. I think. In the International d'Italia, he lost in the final to Nadal, so it's another great result. Obviously, not the result he was looking for, but showing where his level was at on the clay. So then coming into the French Open, he's rated the number 1 seed, and he has an opportunity to complete his second Nole Slam. I think he was super fired up for that. Obviously, he would be super insanely competitive. But he gets to the semifinals, and he runs into a bad man named Dominic Thiem on clay, who was fired up, energized, and had a bit more power to his game. It was a super close match. Could have gone either way. Some controversy with the roof closed the second day, or not the roof closed, with the weather. Djokovic kind of leaving the court, but then Thiem eventually prevailing. So that's a big disappointment for Djokovic, I am sure, because he wanted to get that another chance to prove. Like, I think that Djokovic really has it in his mind that he wants to be known as better than Nadal and Federer, and he loves getting those chances to do that again and again because he is the youngest of the three, and he's been having a winning record for his career versus both of them. But most of those have obviously come as the other two have gotten older. But he obviously would relish any opportunity to meet Nadal in the final again, and maybe his winning record against Nadal in major finals would play a part in that, but he never got the chance because he lost to Dominic Thiem. So I'm giving a rating. If I'm going to give a mark on his clay swing, I'm giving Djokovic an A- because he did very well, except he didn't get to the final of the French Open or win it. So I think that he would also say his mission was not complete on the clay. Roger Federer came back to the clay after like a 2 year of not playing it. He started his campaign in Madrid, losing to Dominic Thiem in the quarterfinals in an extremely close match. He had chances to win the match, so that was an amazing sign for him right away, even though the tournament ended in the quarterfinals. He looked great, and we were reminded, oh yeah, he is one of the greatest all-time clay court players. Even though he's only won one French Open, and that pales in comparison to like the 5, 6, and 8 he's won at the other tournaments, Grand Slams. Yeah, he's one of the all-time greats, and that's what Nadal said after their match, which I appreciated. So then in Rome, he had to retire out of the quarterfinal matchup, basically because he was too tired because he had to play 2 matches in one day. So then he came to the French, looking pretty good. We weren't sure his body was going to hold up, but then he ended up making the semifinals and losing to the clay goat, which you cannot blame him for. So that's an amazing result for Federer. He beat Wawrinka in the quarterfinals, and that I think showed how his greatness, his ability to adapt on clay to his old age and to just the clay surface in general, coming forward lots, using tons of different spins, misdirections, stuff like that. It was amazing to see. He gained 1,080 points on the clay, and I think he showed that he's still a top 5 clay court player in the world right now. He's like, he made it to the last 4 of that tournament, but in general, a guy who's 37, turning 38, clay would be the hardest one for him to play on, and he's still able to do it. It's like at this point, I would not be surprised if it came out that Federer was on performance-enhancing drugs. I just don't know how else to see how you could be that consistent and that good for so long. It's crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. So I would give Federer an A- for him in his eye. Like, he obviously didn't have the greatest results. He didn't win anything, but in his expectations coming back, I would say an A-, maybe even just a straight up A for him. You'd have to ask him I didn't watch too many interviews of him afterwards on his whole rating of his clay, but I'm sure he'd say something along the lines of, it was a very successful season. That's like a terrible Federer accent. But I would say he would probably say it's a very successful clay court swing for him because of his results. As in, I'd say like he didn't have any bad losses in his 3 tournaments he played. So positive for Federer for sure. Dominic Thiem played a lot. Obviously, Monte Carlo lost in the second round to Lajovic, which is weird. Barcelona won the tournament, defeating Medvedev and Nadal en route to doing that. So that's a perfect result for him. We were like, okay, Dominic Thiem's back and ready to rock and roll again. In Madrid, he lost in the semifinals to Djokovic in a very close match. He had chances to win that, obviously. Then in Rome, lost in the second round to Verdasco. Kind of an up-and-down clay court season for Thiem coming to the French. Then the French, obviously, he stepped up big time and showed his greatness, beating Djokovic in the semifinal. he's been getting bigger and bigger results as in the last couple of years, and that's exciting for me. I'm a huge Dominic Thiem fan. Winning Indian Wells, beating Federer in the final is a big deal. Getting to the final, the French beating Djokovic on the way there is also a big deal because Djokovic wasn't injured like he was in, or kind of off his game in 2017. He was playing extremely well on the clay, and Thiem was able to best him. Then lose to Nadal, running out of a bit of steam, but still playing a very, very good match in the final. And Nadal was just too much for him on the day. So you can't blame the guy at all. I would give him another A- for his clay court swing. Kind of an inconsistent clay swing, but put himself in the position to almost create tennis history by beating Nadal in the final at the French. Wow. He just didn't do it. So that was very, very good clay court swing for Thiem, but a little bit inconsistent. But still, I would give him an A-. Now, Alexander Zverev. He's been very under the radar lately because his form has been literally tragic as of late. But this clay court swing, looking back on his results, is pretty interesting. And I can see a trend to what he's doing here. But let's just take a look at his results. In Monte Carlo, he lost in his first match to Fognini, who ended up winning the tournament. And in Barcelona, he lost in his first match to Nicolas Jarry, who's been playing very well, but still bad loss for Zverev. Then he went and played in the Bavarian Open, lost in the quarterfinals to Christian Garin from... I forget, sorry. But that guy's an up-and-comer. Lost to Garin, though. Obviously disappointing for him again. Madrid lost in the quarterfinals to Tsitsipas. Rome lost in the second round to Berrettini. So just lost, LLL. But then he went and played Geneva. Oh, and he won the tournament, defeating Nicolas Jarry in the final. Was that a turning point for him? Because he did look like he had a bit better form in the French Open. He had his best ever major result getting to the quarterfinals, losing to Djokovic, the number one player in the world. So his Grand Slam heebie-jeebies are still there because we've seen him do amazing things. We've seen him win multiple Masters 1000s and win the World Tour Finals, beating Federer and then Djokovic. But he doesn't seem to have the same musto as he does in a 5-set match as he does in a 3-set match. That's just what we've seen. But it looks like he's playing so much and he's trying to just play his way out of it. So that makes sense to me. Trying to get out the heebie-jeebies. He's 22, so I think he's got the energy to hopefully play his way out of it. But I would give him a ranking of a C for the clay court swing. Not good, obviously. He knows he can be at a way better spot. And I don't know what's going on with him in his personal life, etc. But I know that he's got the game to be a top 3, 5, 4 player right now. Eventual number 1, maybe. And definite eventual Grand Slam champion. But he's 22 years old. Think about that. Federer's 15 years older than him. 15 years older. Federer's playing in like the Orange Bowl when Zverev wasn't even born yet. So Zverev's very young, and I don't really put any pressure on him to start winning Grand Slams right now. But, I'm cheering for the guy because he's got a great talent. Stefanos Tsitsipas, the newest guy to this conversation of best tennis players in the world. In Monte Carlo, lost in this first match to Medvedev, who again was insanely hot, taking out people left, right, and center, and then he disappeared. I don't know where he went. Back to Russia? Who knows? He hasn't even shown up since. I don't even know how he did in the French Open. In Barcelona, Tsitsipas lost in the second round to Struff. Struff was playing well, very good as well on the clay, and that's not too bad of a loss for him. But then similar to Zverev, he went off and played in Estoril, winning the tournament, defeating Pablo Cuevas, a clay court specialist, in the final. Great result for him there. Got his musto back, and all 2 bad losses, wins the small tournament, comes back, loses in the final of Madrid to Djokovic, but he defeated Nadal and Zverev en route. Great result for the kid. And then in Rome, lost in the semifinal to Nadal. Another great result. And then in the French, came in. He's got this expectation now on him, but his mental state, like I've always talked about, can handle that expectation. So he lost to Wawrinka in the 4th round, which obviously he'd be a bit disappointed by, but still a good result for him. Overall, kind of slow start to the clay swing. We saw him be a pro, turn that around, and end up with some really good results in Madrid, Rome, and then the French Open. So at 20 years old, very impressive. I've been impressed with everything I've ever seen from him. But again, I'm happy to have him just in the traveling caravan that is pro tennis, and him being at the top, and him being in a conversation for winning pretty much every tournament he plays. So that's awesome from Stefanos Tsitsipas. And the last guy I'm going to do a wrap up for is Juan Martín del Potro. Now he's on his comeback, so he didn't play as much as some of the other guys. He started in Madrid. He lost in his first match to Laszlo Djere, which is not you can't really blame the guy. Laszlo Djere played well. He won a big tournament. He won I think he won it in Brazil, the Masters or the 500 down there. In Rome, he lost in the quarterfinals to Djokovic, but it was a close match. So that shows where his level's at, because Djokovic was playing great. He had just won Madrid, and then he almost won Rome. And so losing a close match to Djokovic shows that he's back at it. And, his talent, I would say his body's matching his talent. That's the only time he's not playing as well as when his body's letting him down. He's a world-class player, top 4 player in the world when he's healthy, but he hasn't been for most of his career, which is extremely sad. Then we get to the French, 5 setters on clay, and he lost in the 4th round to Khachanov. So getting the 4th round is a decent result for him on a comeback. Khachanov played out of his mind that match, hitting huge, and it was just too much for Delpo on the day. But can't blame the old Argentinian. So I'm giving him a B+ on his clay court swing. Top 3 performers on the clay for me were Nadal 1, Thiem 2, and Djokovic 3. Some people would argue that Djokovic could go above Thiem, but I think Thiem bested him on the biggest stage at the French Open, making it to the final. And that puts Thiem ahead of Djokovic in my books. So that's that. So, question from old Gold Wolf, friend of the show, supplier of some of my clothes. Thanks, Gold Wolf, for sending this in. And his question was, if Djokovic had beat Thiem and ended up in the final of the French versus Nadal, or say Djokovic and Nadal end up in the final of Wimbledon, who would Federer cheer for? And he was asking this in light of, with the Grand Slam totals, who would he cheer for? Obviously, if Nadal wins another one, he's 18 at the French. He would get to 18, which he did, or he'd get to 19 at Wimbledon, and then get a 3rd Wimbledon. Or would he cheer for Djokovic because he's less close to his record? I think it's fairly obvious to me that he'd be cheering for Nadal. I think he's almost said this before in interviews, because he's a friend of Nadal. I think they're honestly friends. Like it's not like this weird thing where they're pretending to be because they're the best players in the world. Obviously, they've had crazily competitive battles for their entire career, 39 times. But I think you cheer for Nadal because I think he respects Nadal more as a tennis player, more as a champion, and maybe more as a person. I've heard some shady comments from Federer about Djokovic in the past, a lot when he was younger, when he quit matches all the time from heat or whatever, from injury. But there's also, I know there's been a little bit of beef that Federer's probably not said about different things. Like I remember when Djokovic, sorry, Goldwolf, I accidentally said Djokovic. I know it's not sorry, but that's what you would say. When Djokovic came back, I think it was the U.S. Open 2015 final, and Federer had match points, and Djokovic just slapped some winner returns. And Federer said some salty comments after that, which is kind of ridiculous because kudos to Djokovic for stepping up, but it is, he said it. What Federer said was that it's like in your juniors when people start slapping the ball and it just starts going in and you can't win. That's what he compared Djokovic to. So that was a little bit salty. But I just think also Federer doesn't care as much about Grand Slam totals as we do, or GOAT status. So at the end of the day, I think he'd be cheering for Nadal, but he probably would rather just beat both those guys, to be honest. So that's what I think about that. Thanks for the question, Gold Wolf. Alrighty, folks. Let's take a quick look into the grass court season coming up here because I get psyched. I love it. I played in a clay court tournament actually, and I lost in the first round up here to a Division 1 NCAA Division 1 female tennis player. So I do not take any. I don't feel bad at all. She was great, and I didn't have I took my worst shoes to play on clay, like most rundown tennis shoes, because I didn't want to wreck them. But I realized somebody up there told me it actually wouldn't hurt the shoes really as much. And so I literally couldn't move. I was skating. Still had some winners. I had a drop shot return that hit the net on the way back. So that was some highlights for me. But I might be playing a grass court tournament as well. It's called the Wimbledon on Vancouver Island, where I live. And I might make a vlog about it. Hopefully going to make a vlog about it. So that's cool. But grass season is sweet. I love the tennis. Lots of serve and volleying, lots of cool stuff like that. People can dive. It's awesome. And it's short. So short and sweet. So let's look ahead to the grass season, a.k.a. Wimbledon. It's basically the only big tournament there. Who's the most dangerous players on grass? I'm going to go on a limb and say, number 1, Roger Federer. Because his body looks great. And at the French Open, we saw him use his craft, his skills so much. And I just think that coming to the grass, if his body's in great form, he's the best grass court player of all time. And it would be disrespectful to say that he's not the most dangerous player to win Wimbledon this year. So I'm going with Roger Federer. I think coming in, if he doesn't choke like he did last year against Anderson, he's I don't even know who he's going to play. He was going to play not Djokovic in the final, he would have played someone else. I forget who right now, but he probably would have won that, and then he would have got to the final playing Nadal or Djokovic, and I'm still taking Federer in that matchup today on grass. So I think Federer is the most dangerous player on grass because he's won 8 Wimbledons, and yeah, his body looks great. He seems to be playing fine, and he seems to have that fire still. When he lost to Nadal, when he was losing to Nadal in the match, he smashed the ball into the crowd. I love that. I love seeing Fed still fired up. He's still got the passion for the game, and I think he's the most dangerous player on the grass. Number 2, you got to put Djokovic up there. He won Wimbledon last year. His form on clay has been good, but it's been pretty erratic before that. But he shines on the big stage, so you got to think that he'll be ready for Wimbledon. Historically, he hasn't played too many lead-up tournaments to Wimbledon, so we'll see if he plays Halle or Stuttgart or anything like that. I kind of doubt it, but you got to think that his forms, he seems to be playing better fast court tennis. He's shortening points in general in his career now, and he's looking dangerous on grass. Because last year he won it kind of out of nowhere because he wasn't playing very well before that. Third most dangerous player is Nadal. Big 3, where are you? Oh, you're still the favorites for like every tournament. It's crazy what these guys are doing. But Nadal playing better fast court tennis than he ever has in his career. At the Australian Open, we saw that. I expect him to play a similar style to that at Wimbledon, and I think it's going to be very effective. Unless he meets some big hitters in the tournament, like in the second, third, or fourth rounds, who could knock him out. He'll get his swag under him, and he'll be very dangerous on the grass as well. Now I got questions. I think Isner, I don't know where he was I think he lost early at the French Open and didn't do too much on the clay. But on the grass, he's obviously dangerous, and he played great in Miami, making it to the final, and he's been playing great in general lately on those hard courts. So he could be dangerous. We'll see where his body's at. That's also another thing for him. He's so big. He's like 6'10". His back starts to go out. Is Raonic going to come back? He's a former Wimbledon finalist. Can he do it again? We don't know. Kevin Anderson's a great grass court player. We don't really know where his body's at either, but he made it to the final last year, taking out Federer, breaking Federer's hearts, coming back from 2 sets down. Somehow, I still don't know how he did that, but he should be a threat on grass as well. And then is there other guys like Kyrgios? Does Kyrgios want to ball out on grass? He seems like he's been in London the whole time. He basically skipped the French Open because he thought that England was way sicker. And he's already playing. We've seen some great tennis from him so far, playing doubles with Maddie Reed, friend of the show. So he could he be dangerous at Wimbledon? I would love to see for Kyrgios to get back playing serious tennis, getting deep in majors. Not that he ever has actually really got deep in majors, but I would love to see him deep in majors. And Alexander Zverev, can he play well on the grass? Is he going to get his form back? I think he could be a great grass court player because he's got a big first serve. He just has to be way more aggressive than he has been. Second ball tennis, which is like his second shot serve, second ball needs to be more aggressive on the grass, and I think he could do some serious damage. Is Grigor Dimitrov going to make an appearance? He played decently at the French. Wait, did he, or did he lose early? I forget, man. Sorry, guys. But he's been playing kind of a little bit better lately. He had some decent wins, I know, in the clay court swing. So we'll see if he can do something on the grass. He's been good there historically as well. So I'm looking forward to the grass. It's going to be hot fire. And that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning into the front row show. I've been so busy covering the clay swing. I haven't had as much time to be creative with this. I've just done like topics and stuff like that, but I am going to be doing more stuff with this in the future, hopefully getting some guests on the show and other things like that. And I'm going to be producing t-shirts in here or Slice t-shirts, new Slice t-shirts are going to be rolling out, and I'm going to get you guys a discount code for those because I appreciate your support so much. So thanks again for tuning in. This has been the Front Row Show with your host, Stephen Boughton on the Slice Tennis News. Thanks, guys. See you next time.